but not too much to make it jump. This is a bad situation to be in.
Is it smoking at all?
No.
Okay. Then it may just be the rear main. Because sometimes...
Only the rear main.
Because, well, yeah, right.
Hey, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, as I promised in the last one, we're getting back to the M5. So we're heading down to the shop now, and we're going to change out those rear suspension arms that we found that had failed on the PPI.
Is my headlight going to get on YouTube?
Maybe.
Sweet. Oh, yeah. Diamond sway bars? This front one is too.
Oh yeah. See it torn right in the corner, hopefully. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch that. It's quite a cool video. If you've been following for a while, the reason why they haven't been done yet is because when I went to do them, I actually discovered that the kit I'd bought was for the model year after this one. So the 2006 BMW M5 actually had very slightly different rear upper arms. So far, we've taken care of everything drivability wise. So we've done the rod bearings, we've done the Vanos solenoids, we've done that high pressure line, which can always cause issues. We've rebuilt the front suspension. Buy the tool. There is a tool that helps you remove the strut and actually allow you to release the thrust arm. The rear suspension, as well as that KGM, are about the last things that we need to do before this thing is perfect. And as always here in the Midwest, the weather has turned on an absolute dime. So just earlier this week it was 74, and this morning when I left, bearing in mind it's 9 o'clock, it's 25. Winter is here. All right, just to show you where we're starting from, here are all the bits we're going to need for today. So we've basically got the rear arms at the top. There's two of those, one at the front, one at the back. There's all the associated hardware, because you have to replace that if you undo it. Now, as you saw in the last video, unfortunately these arms were incorrect, so I had to go ahead and find the right ones for this model year. So that's what these are. And then I've also got the calipers out because I need to get at least close on the alignment so I can drive it to chicane so they can finish it off. Highly recommend whenever you work on any vehicle like this where the nuts are actually receded into the wheel that you use a socket with a nylon protected sleeve. Always leave one just in a little bit so that when you rock it, it doesn't come flying off. With the wheel out of the way, we can see the two arms we're going to be replacing. The front one is generally known as a guide arm, or at least that's what it's called in TIS, and the rear one is the upper control arm. You can see though that the bolts are super easily accessible. Before removing them, we need to mark the alignment bolts, just to make sure everything goes back together as close as possible to straight. So what I'm going to do is just mark the eccentric bolt, and hopefully put it back on in a very similar place. Idea being then, we're going to loosen this nut back here. We are going to undo and loosen this nut here. That arm comes off. Very similar story with this arm. So up there you can see there's a nut and a bolt. Just back here. Right at the front there you can see we're going to remove this and replace this arm too. This is the damage, which is why we're replacing it, and I'll see how stiff that is in a minute just to see how bad it was. The one at the front here is a 16mm. I need to hold on to the end, and that is a 7mm. Though it's rusty and this is going to be a pain. So I won't bore you with everything I tried, but at this point it's a case of getting every tool out of the box to see what's going to work. Sometimes a SAE or an Imperial spanner is just slightly smaller, but in this case I ended up having to use some vice grips. One last try before I resort to desperate measures. Ooh, I think this might have worked. That got it. It did. Okay, top tip, if you're going to do this method, make sure you use a ratcheting spanner at the back, or a ratcheting wrench. I didn't, and when I got the vice grips off, they wouldn't go back on again. I resorted to an even bigger pair of vice grips. Okay, only 7 more to go. The one back here is a little bit easier. I'm using a ratcheting wrench on this side, and then just a normal wrench on this side. Came off almost immediately. I'm actually going to go ahead and remove this other bolt to make it easier to get this arm out. Okay, with that loose, this should, famous last words, okay. The old arm out, the new arm can go in. And then before the eccentric washer was up this way, I'm going to do the same. You can see there where I marked it. So basically that top part of the bolt itself was flat. So I'm just going to put that horizontal for now. I'll line all this up in a second. Push on the rotor to pull that arm in. The eccentric washers are now in the right place, both front and back. This is in. I'm going to replace this arm before I tighten that, just in case I need to wiggle everything around, because they're lock nuts. So it's 21mm at the front, 18 at the back. I'm actually just going to try and break it free with a socket set. Sometimes that just helps, and then I'll have to go in there in a minute with a spanner and a key. So it is a T40. The key is to put just enough torque on, but not too much to make it jump. This is a bad situation to be in. It's basically jumping on that Torx bit. Okay, so I've had to just tighten it back up quickly to see if that will help, and then I've got to go very slowly. Sometimes tightening it again helps free up some of that corrosion. Based on the amount of torque that's going into this, I found that I had to go pretty slow. By the inch it's a cinch, right? If I went quickly ever, it would just end up jumping. The last one is back here. Here we go. This one's going to be easy, right? Nice one. Once you've got it loose, you can come over this way. There's so little pressure on this end, this bolt just slides right out. With all that out of the way, this just slides out. And now we just need to remove these plastic parts. It's just a clip that undoes, that comes off, and then the arm slides out. So here's just an up close of a new arm versus an old arm. You can see how stiff this is, and obviously that protective boot, this is the old one. And you can hear it grinding. Thankfully there's no play, so that means the car wasn't going to do anything funny down the road, but it probably wasn't far off. Here's the rear arm then. Yeah, grindy, grindy. Versus the new one. So it's going to stiffen everything up at the back, which is going to be fantastic. Time to do the other side and get these arms in. So we've already got the front arm in, the eccentric washers are in. We need to line those up in a minute before we tighten everything. Before I go and do that, I just want to go ahead and get this rear arm in. Okay, so position that underneath. This end should just slide in. There. And then the back. Perfect. Now the rear bolt actually goes in towards the back of the car. And that goes on. The nut goes on the front, and now we need to torque everything. So in order to put the eccentric washers where I want, I just need a little bit of tension. There we go. And then if I look at the original bolt, I can see that the two lines that I drew there are at the top, and then this part was flat. If I match that up on this bolt, you can see there that this is the bottom, this is the top. It's difficult with the wire in the way, but I am happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten that. Again, it's just to get home. As long as it's not completely off, it would eat a tyre, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. And these are 65 Newton meters. I'm going to have to use a crow's foot to see if I can get in there because it is very tight. But I can go ahead and do this one up at 65 as well. So I'll do that before I torque this. The 7mm does hold this nicely now. So with a crow's foot, I need to be able to get in there. And the idea being is if you can get the crow's foot at 90 degrees, it won't change the torque. I can't actually get the crow's foot in there properly, so it's going to have to be good and tight. Right, with those done, it's onto this arm. So the design of this arm is slightly different, as you might have noticed a minute ago. So I need to use a 10mm socket on the end with a normal spanner. Oh, I wish I had a ratcheting 21. And now for the one back here, it is 218s. Those tight, we now need to torque them. So this is 165 and that is 100 Newton meters. So conveniently, with I think this is an 8-inch extension and then a deep socket, I can actually get the torque wrench to come out here so I can get the leverage I need on it. And because it's already snugged down, the inner part of that ball joint won't rotate. And then this is 100 Newton meters. And it's really awkward because my torque wrench doesn't have enough click. So I have to pull it off, rotate it one click, and put it back on where I want it. Need to put the wires back. So they just slide in around the arm, like so. The plastic clip comes around the front. There we go. And then this just clips back in there. So the other side was exactly the same as the right hand side. Time to put the wheels on. And then from here we can lower the car just to make sure that the wheels are not in a really funky angle or pointing in a really weird direction. We can use the toe plates just to check that as well. 2/16 toe in, that's good enough. I can drive on that. You're wondering why I swapped the tape measures? I'll show you. Normally you would use the same tape measure, but unfortunately we have lost one. And as you can see, that tape measure is too big, so that will never work. But there you go, the rear arms are done. I'm hoping my measurements were correct. That was a little bit weird with those two tape measures. At first I thought the measurements were way off, which was really worrying. But thankfully they weren't, and it was within like 3/16, which is fine. So 3/16 toe in. I think it's meant to be more neutral, but that's okay. That's not too bad. I'm driving down the street, steering wheel is straight. There's no weird noises yet. There's no wobbles. I did torque the wheels. So it is 90 foot-pounds, 120 Newton meters. I think it's 88 something, but anyway, you get the idea. So it's about 90 foot-pounds, and I did that after I'd shut all the cameras down, but they're done. This is the highway, moment of truth. I just hope I make it home and I don't destroy a tyre. Now time to head to chicane to go and get this beast aligned after working on the suspension arms. So that'll be fun. So I know the weather isn't the most interesting thing to everyone else, but being from England, we always talk about it, but 17 degrees. Brr. So it's time to check out how close the alignment at the rear end was. So I've basically replaced all of the control arms at the front lower, rear upper. So I'm surprised I got it that close.
Yeah, I'll just say.
So overall at the rear, it's actually not looking too bad. You can see the toe left to right was out of spec, but the total toe, which is the one that matters when driving it down the street, is alright. The front though was way worse than I was expecting. That was after replacing those lower control arms when I did the rod bearings. I'm glad I got it in when I did. Yeah, just in there.
Yeah. Have you checked the valve covers?
I have not. You think
So
it
if
could
you
be
look
that?
right there, it's coming out the sensor hole.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so when we get it, God, the valve cover's stuck on this, but we can maybe get a mirror back there. So what'll happen, is it smoking at all?
No.
Okay. Then it may just be the remain. Because sometimes...
Only the rear main.
Because, well, yeah, right. Because sometimes, well, not sometimes, all the time, the valve covers leak.
Yep.
And then they go back down onto the headers, and that's what'll smoke. So if it's not smoking, then it could just be the remain. But a lot of times we see people diagnose the remains because this is where all the oil wants to go to.
Gotcha.
But it's really actually the valve covers, and it comes to the back and then leaks down the back of the head.
So it started after I did the rod bearings. Obviously, I felt more comfortable getting on it a bit. And I
Yeah.
kind of figured like that additional pressure when you get on it, you know, for the first time in a while, if that rear main is...
Well, and it'll create vacuum and,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you know, positive pressure and vacuum, and that kind of articulates the diaphragm and the remain. I don't see any, obviously it's kind of hard because...
Because they stuffed a V10 into a tiny chassis?
Correct, yeah. I don't see any up high.
Yeah, I couldn't see it above the sensor, so I kind of figured it was coming from inside.
And it really is. It's coming, I mean, there's a little bit above where the...
Oh, there is?
Yeah, not a lot. Like where the oil pan meets the...
Oh, don't say that.
No, I don't think it's...
Did I not get the oil pan seal done
No,
properly?
I think... How many miles are on the day? I wrote it down.
90 something or other.
21. It may just be 21.5. May just be remain.
So one thing I do want to share, while we were waiting for the car to be aligned, Brad dug out these Nuke Performance competition air jacks. So these are special because they actually run on a normal air compressor. Normal air jacks actually run at like 300 psi or something silly. So the downside is these are going to be slightly heavier just based on the size of the body. It needs it for the area to actually be able to run that lower pressure. The other thing he showed us then was this new chassis mounted wing. Check out the size of these end plates. Just got out of chicane. They were able to align it and everything came out perfectly. So all within spec, which is awesome. So I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. At this rate, I actually might get back for date night with my wife, I will be in the good books. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Next time, it's going to be on to the Audi, I think. I think the transmission service kit will be in. The rate things are going with these two cars, it won't be long before they're completely up to snuff and we can start improving them as opposed to just maintaining them.